We made the movie so financially responsible because of Sam, my producer, but also because of Andrew.
Have I told you guys recently how fantastic and wonderful job you're doing?
Not enough, Andrew, you know?
No, well, I just like to say at this opportunity when no one's listening.
Well, you can tell us again if you'd like.
Andrew and I, it's the first time we've worked together. Just a real fun, quirky guy. I like that, real eccentric personality. He had shot The Lord of the Rings, so he brought an incredible wealth of experience and know-how.
Andrew, what do you love about your job?
Well, I get to come to great locations and I get to meet charming people like yourself and Jay.
So you could just say it's a match made in heaven because he's aesthetically so beautiful, the way his shots are. And for a film like this, it just makes it epic. It has the epic feeling.
Hey guys,
When we were designing how to shoot the movie, he would say, I need this set, or don't build that set. It would be much easier for me just to do this and ILM fill in the rest. So that balancing act between what to build, how to make it, how to execute it, Andrew was literally, he was literally a genius in that process to help us bridge that gap.
Rule of thumb is where someone's interacting, you want a real element, and whether it's off to the side or in the deep background, use your effects.
A lot of this stuff hasn't really been figured out, so it's up to the artist to get in there and solve all these problems, to sort of create this world that doesn't exist. So it's a very creative process. You can put a lot of your own decisions into this.
Guitar at the very, very head. One might want to look, now she's fine, but when she was just against the white, and there's some matting things for me, even there a little bit.
Okay.
Guitar, not so much on, so just take a look at it.
Yeah, they get a little bit. That's some of the stuff we're painting, but I'll take another look at that specific section.
And then I kind of start buying it all the way through, and then...
Being a fantasy, these worlds didn't exist and were hugely complex to build, particularly when you're dealing with ice and the different materials. So being able to have 3D matte paintings, be able to extend a set was imperative to achieving the movie.
Is there maybe a couple of variations on this idea that you could do for me?
Yes, like just more extreme.
How you would manifest the glow. Maybe I see a little bit here, and then the belly. Maybe just a couple verses.
Yep, understood.
I needed to be able to do two things. One, to ascertain an aesthetic, and the second one is be able to articulate it in a way that they go, I know it.
I want this to be about her sacrifice, not so much about the fish right now.
And would they move in the same way they're currently moving in?
Rather than swimming in, that they come up from the depth, so it has more mystery.
Think of some ideas.
I've been trying these sort of glow treatments on, which kind of helps in the sequence when they die. They'll lose the glow, and then you'll see, when I'm playing with this idea of when her hair goes from white to dark, so you get a little more visual sense about her death brings back their life.
His priorities are always about story and always about performance. And the effects on this one, we always have the option of digital effects, but I know that, ultimately he'd like to have as much organic effects as he can.
There's been martial arts movies, but there's never been forms fighting other forms. So they would be doing a form in a moment, and the next person's doing a form. They're not actually touching each other, and they're bending elements at each other.
We knew that there would be some form of an energy burst. Our end of it was to create the interactive part of that.
Noah, keep your knees bent.
Okay, let's bring the wind up to what it'll be. For water and for air, that was fairly easy because it would just require particles getting up in the air, but with the fire bending. And instead of them being able to form fire, they could only take fire and manipulate it.
All those elements had to be thought of by Steve and his group so that they were there to be used in a practical sense if needed for stunts, but also there so visual effects could take advantage and enhance them.
I was always pushing for getting Steve Bremen to give us the fire, on set, at least, so that we had a reference.
It held true to what the original plan was. Whenever we can get as much organic stuff as we can, even if it was going to be erased completely, it was at least something for the actors to interact with, and it was something in the air so that it wasn't a completely synthetic feel.
This is kind of a dream effects movie, to be able to work with all the different natural elements.
There are some stories that are waiting to be told. The technology is out there to do what's called bending for specific elements, especially water and fire. It took us, about a year and a half of research and development to develop a technique to be able to control the elements inside a computer environment.
It's a real process when we start, because all of these things are large endeavors for us. This film, probably more than anyone I've been attached with, we used artwork.
He's always been an advocate of storyboarding and an advocate of putting your plan down into images. And here we just took it to the full capacity with pre-visualization and then using that as a tool to move inside of those environments in 3D. And in turn, that information, multiplies out to everyone in the movie, from the design and the building of the sets to the visual effects.
Obviously, my first real CGI movie was one of the great apprehensions for me. Can I learn this skill and be able to guide them? I have to say, go in this direction. I don't like this. This is looking fake, whatever it is. If I lead them in the wrong direction, we're sunk.
You're dealing with natural phenomenon, but doing very unnatural things. And the audience will pick up on that straight away.
Even with the water bending, if we took it too far, we got too fancy, you would have us pull it back.
Yeah, you're toast. Yeah, you're toast. Well, I remember I got this idea at the breakfast table. I was testing it with my kids, who are a bad audience to test scary things on. I was like, girls, do you think it's too scary if the villain dies, drowns in the air? And they were like, that's cool. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. In the movie, you're going over him like this, and then seeing his face as he drowns. So how can you achieve something going like this? Well, Andrew said, put him on his side, and we'll have the camera go around on the dolly.
Josip, of course, was a little skeptical. He hadn't done too many stunts. We actually turned him sideways and turned the camera sideways and blew wind on him, shot at a high frame rate.
The take was so good right up to the death, I'd print that.
It was the most simple and concise and uncomplicated piece of direction I've ever gotten in my life. There was no metaphor. He was actually just saying, dude, just die faster. And then he walked out of the room, which I've only experienced in comedy clubs.
This is gonna be, 4 times as long on film, so you can't do your Hamlet death here, otherwise it'll be like, we'll all be, oh my God, he's still dying.
He always wanted it to be kind of grounded in the physics of our world. For instance, with the water bending, we looked at a lot of reference of water and zero gravity. And that's what he kind of pointed to and said, see, that's something that can really happen.
Specifically with Katara, we had to get across the fact that she was just learning. As we see her going through the movie, she basically gains more and more control.
Controllable water, a giant wave, small tentacles, in some cases, used as a weapon. You have to walk that line between natural motion and fantasy motion.
Knight was really specific about wanting each event to be somewhat specific, 1 to the situation and 2 to the person wielding the different elements.
Knight wanted every effect to be unique, to be different, and to get across either the emotional state or the skill of the bender.
He or she did a very aggressive move there, so it should move a little faster and the water should be a little bit angrier. Those conversations were being had.
Air was a challenge because what are you supposed to see?
Do you pull from the things around you? So do you pull snow or snow?
Anywhere we could, we wanted it to draw out the dust of that environment so that you could actually see the air.
There's clearly actions in this movie that can't be photographed. If it's done correctly, everyone assumes it's a photographic element.
That smoke is too much. I know what the problem is. At the left side of frame, you have a sun highlight that's making me feel that this isn't real. This building on the left feels more prominent and in focus than it should be, or the whole thing is too out of focus, bring the background up.
The idea of visual effects supervising is that you do anticipate whatever the director vision is.
The creature's moving in this way. I don't believe it. He seems like his IQ is too low. He seems distracted at this moment. He should be suddenly aware of the fact that there's another guy who's about to attack him. Now it's been like a year. They can hear me in their heads.
Definitely. I think the idea is that we have worked together so well and so long that we know exactly what the other one is going to say.